Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany is a member of the committee that's holding today's hearing, and Erin Rachwal. She testified, as you saw in Aisha's piece there, before lawmakers about the loss of her 19-year-old son, Logan, to fentanyl poisoning. Erin, it's been just a little bit more than a year since Logan passed away from fentanyl poisoning. I'm sure that the pain is still with you to this very day, every bit as much as it was back then when you first learned of his passing. What is it that you want the nation to know about his death?
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate that. And yes, what I want the nation to know is that this is, just like Derek Malt said, a crisis. We have a tsunami, a public health emergency crisis, and every parent and every child needs to understand what's going on in our country.
And what is it that's going on in our country as far as you see it?
As far as I see it, I feel like we are being targeted. Kids are being targeted. It's the vulnerable population, the fastest growing population that we're losing. We have drugs flooding into this country from the border, Mexican cartels and China. And I mean, I truly believe that they are looking for the vulnerable people to kill.
Yeah, I mean, for them, it's big business. I'm not quite sure what it is for China, but they really don't care whether or not they're killing people. They just want to try to get people hooked. The Attorney General, Congressman Merrick Garland, was on the hot seat in the Senate earlier today, being asked about this particular topic by Senator Lindsey Graham. Listen to a little bit of this exchange here.
How would you describe the fentanyl problem in America?
It's a horrible epidemic,
okay.
But it's an epidemic that's been unleashed on purpose by the Sinaloa and the new generation Jalisco cartels.
It's an epidemic that has been unleashed on purpose by the Sinaloa and other cartels. I mean, it almost sounds like a declaration of war, the way that the Attorney General is talking about it. This administration refuses to declare war on these cartels. What do you think President Biden should do?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you notice in Attorney General Garland's comments, he didn't say anything about China. And I don't understand why the administration continually will not say the word China, because that's where this problem is originating. And, you know, John, just set aside the human trafficking that's going on at an epic scale. Set aside the people coming in on the terror watch list that we've never seen those numbers like that before. Just on fentanyl alone, both parties should be in agreement, and they should be acting now to secure the border, because that's the major part of this problem. The border is not secured. We could do that tomorrow if the political will was here on Capitol Hill.
You know, we'll be talking to Congressman Dan Crenshaw in our next hour here on America Reports about legislation that he's working on with Democrats that wouldn't declare cartels to be a foreign terrorist organization, but would allow the U.S. military to go after them. Let me ask you, Erin, about China, because as Congressman Tiffany points out, the precursor for fentanyl that's produced in Mexico comes directly from China. You got to figure, that China knows what it's doing here. What do you think China's game is here? Is it to undermine American society?
Absolutely. I think that they're targeting us. I mean, there's no doubt about it. When you look at all the details and you put all the facts on the table, we're being targeted. There's no doubt about it.
You know, we heard Congressman Erin's compelling testimony today. Yesterday, we heard from Rebecca Kiesling, who lost both of her sons to fentanyl poisoning. Here's how she described the situation. Listen here.
This is a war. Act like it. Do something.
I mean, she was just distraught yesterday in her testimony, proclaiming that this is a war. Why is it falling on so many deaf ears in Congress and at the White House?
It's the same thing that the DEA witness said today, is that you guys got to start looking at this as a war. We're prepared to act, but for whatever reason, and I suspect it's because of the border, and President Biden cannot acknowledge on January 20th of 2021, when he decided we're going to have a borderless country, he cannot acknowledge that there's other harms that came along with that. I mean, there was fentanyl already coming in, but we saw two sheriffs that have testified before the Judiciary Committee in the last month who have both said under questioning, there is no doubt the fentanyl is far worse pouring into our country as a result of the open borders policies of the last 2 years.
Erin, last question to you, if I could quickly. In the wake of your son's death, you and your husband started the Love Logan Foundation. What's your goal?
Our goal is to spread the word, to call this a national crisis, and to educate kids and educate parents. This has not been in parents' toolkits to talk to their kids about pills and fentanyl. It just wasn't something that was in our, in our toolkit. And so our main goal is to educate and warn kids. If our country's not going to do something, the grieving families are, and we are fighting. We're funding everything. We're fighting for everything. And it's hard, but it's got to be done to save other kids. I don't want to see any other family go through this.
We wish you Godspeed in your endeavors. And again, our hearts are with you. Erin Rachwal, Congressman,
Thanks,
thank you
John.
so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Kelly?
John.
Thank you, John.